Stephen Miller and Christy Nome and others, and the president himself were pushing for quotas. They wanted more numbers. They wanted higher numbers. And that approach that Tom Homan was using was unable to produce that. And so now we have seen what has happened now. And it's just, it's not working.
Donald Trump is preparing to pull federal agents out of the city of Minneapolis. The White House is facing outrage on both sides of the political divide after a second fatal shooting by immigration officers. The Border Patrol commander, Greg Bovino, has become a lightning rod for anger due to his comments like these that he made on CNN over the weekend.
The situations are chaotic and ever-changing. Follow directions for law enforcement. Don't inject yourself knowingly beforehand into a law enforcement situation.
With respect, it feels as though in some ways you're blaming the victim here.
The victims are the Border Patrol agents. I'm not blaming the Border Patrol agents. The victim are the Border Patrol agents. The suspect put himself in that situation. The victims are the Border Patrol agents there.
So Greg Bovino not identifying Alex Peretti, the intensive care nurse who was killed as the victim. And that sound you could hear in the background was CNN were playing those very traumatic videos at the same time as the interviews. That's what you could hear. Well, Greg Bovino is expected to be among those leaving the city today. There are some reports that his access to official social media channels have been revoked. We're going to talk about this in more detail. Jacob Thomas is a Minneapolis resident. He's also the communications director of the campaign group Common Defense, which organises veterans for progressive causes, and joins us. Hello, Jacob.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Of course. We're hearing these reports then of a pull-out by ICE. Have you seen anything of that effect yet on the streets?
I mean, it's very early here. It's 9 a.m. here, so we haven't seen anything major happen yet, as kind of has been reported. It sounds like Greg Bovino and some agents are going to be leaving today. But I want to be clear, this isn't an issue of great, now there's a few less. What Minneapolis, what Minnesotans are demanding, what Common Defense and veterans across this country are demanding is an end to all ICE operations, that every single ICE agent, Border Patrol agent leaves our city and stops this unjust occupation, and that we actually take steps to investigate and prosecute the people who have been enabling this for months. That has led to not just the 2 killings, 2 murders here in Minnesota, but we've seen deaths and so many other constitutional rights violations across the country in ICE detainment as well. So all of that needs to be addressed. A couple of them leaving and Greg Bovino being run out of town is not the end, and it is not justice for too many people.
And at this point, you say it's early and we don't actually know. We're expecting them to be pulled out, but we don't have confirmation of that. Yeah. Can you tell us what your plans are today, or the other people who've been protesting against the ICE agents?
Yeah, it's a little cold here. I don't know if people understand the weather here in Minnesota, but it's very cold. But we are still going to be out in the streets, both doing protests and rallies. There's at least one at the Minnesota State Capitol here at noon inside, and there's a one at 5:30 p.m. here, 17:30 our time out nearby as well. So we're going to still be out here, and that's just the rallies and protests pieces of this. What we're also seeing is community members and neighbors joining together to help make sure that, the schools have, sort of protection from these mass federal agents. We've seen our communities come together in just beautiful, beautiful ways to protect each other with our whistles while they have guns and, chemical grenades. So we're still going to be doing all that. And I think we will do that until all 3,000 of these mass federal agents leave our city and go back to their own homes and take care of their own business and get out of ours.
Have you at any point feared for your own safety demonstrating?
I think it's one of those things that is now just a constant piece that every single person has to take into consideration and be concerned with. But I want to acknowledge too, as a white man who is usually running around at these protests or doing these kinds of block patrols in a veteran hat, it's usually a lot safer for me to do that than it is for our neighbors of color or people with accents, because that's exactly who they're targeting for no justified reasons. And we've seen that. So I think, of course, there's always that concern of safety. I am probably not one of the ones that needs to be as concerned as much as some of our other neighbors, because they're the ones being targeted and harassed in just so much more despicable ways. But as we saw, it doesn't matter who you are or what you look like when you are trying to protect your neighbors from this authoritarian occupation. That is going to potentially end badly no matter what.
Mm. If you could hold right there, Jacob, I'm going to bring into the conversation Patricia Lopez, a Bloomberg columnist, former member of the Minneapolis Star Tribune editorial board. And just as a reminder, if for you listening, that ICE is the US law enforcement agency that have been taking the lead on carrying out Trump's administration's mass deportations initiative. But over the last 3 weeks, 2 people, Americans, have been killed by those ICE agents. Patricia, the big kind of wider political question here is, has Trump completely lost control of his ICE crackdown initiative?
Yes, I would say he has. Operation Metro Surge has been an unmitigated disaster, starting with the shooting death of Renee Good, and the seizure of a 5-year-old boy, Liam Conejo Ramos, who is still in a detention facility in somewhere in Texas, and now with the death of Alex Preddy, and so many more incidents in between. Yes, I would say he's lost control, and the best evidence of that is that he has removed Greg Bovino. That's just a start, but he has brought in, more importantly, Tom Homan, who earlier had advocated for an approach that centered more specifically on dangerous convicted criminals. And that was probably the right approach to begin with. He lost out on that because Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem and others, and the president himself, were pushing for quotas. They wanted more numbers. They wanted higher numbers. And that approach that Tom Homan was using was unable to produce that. And so now we have seen what has happened now, and it's just it's not working.
What we have seen is a complete clash as well from the video evidence that is being created by the protesters, who've basically decided to use, actually our most powerful tool is a dash cam or a camera or my phone camera, against what we've been hearing from the Trump administration about what the ICE agents have actually been doing and the justification for it. In some ways, it has been totally abhorrent and tragic what's happened, but the protesters' strategy of filming everything has been something that may now be their biggest weapon in fixing this.
It has caught the administration in lie after lie after lie. And there is just no way that Secretary Noem could have any credibility left, or after she immediately calls, both Good and Preddy domestic terrorists. And you can see from the video that they were nothing of the sort. Preddy was attempting to help a woman up and was viciously attacked. Then they hold up the fact that he had a gun. Well, half the households in Minnesota have guns. They are licensed to carry firearms, and a number of them have concealed carry permits. So what he was doing was completely legal at the time.
Yeah. As we've discussed, and there's sort of so many different angles of exactly what happened in that case of Alex Peretti. A development today, the head of ICE has been ordered to appear in a Minnesota court to explain why he isn't holding hearings for detained migrants. It does suggest, Patricia, that there are some legal problems coming down the track for ICE.
Well, they have a track record, unfortunately, despite all of the funding that they got in the One Big Beautiful Bill. They have been firing wave after wave of immigration judges. So really, they have put themselves in a position where now it's almost impossible for them to provide this due process. So it really is a problem of their own making. They don't lack for funds at all to hire all the immigration judges they need.
Yeah. What the wider context to this, Patricia? Immigration, control of immigration actually had been a very positive story for President Trump until about a month ago, particularly what he'd achieved on the southern border. It is now surely not the case that President Trump's biggest asset is now something the Democrats can use against him and has become such a toxic story. I wonder what this is doing to Donald Trump's popularity and poll rating.
Well, I think you can see his poll numbers are declining, particularly on immigration, particularly with independents. Republicans are still with him, although not as much as they were before. And more importantly, you're seeing Republican lawmakers starting to back away. They are well aware of the midterm elections coming up, and the position they're in is just untenable. I mean, these were not two immigrants that were shot. These were two white American US-born citizens. And it becomes much easier at that point for the average American to look and say, that looks just like me. That could be me.
Yeah, you've got the American federal government firing on American citizens. Patricia, Thank you. Patricia Lopez, Bloomberg columnist and the former member of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune editorial board. And earlier we were hearing from Jacob Thomas, a Minneapolis resident who's the communications director of the campaign group Common Defense. And what is very clear from what Jacob was saying to us is there is a fundamental break there between the citizens of Minneapolis and the federal government, who are supposed to be in charge and running things. And when that trust is broken, you are then in a very dangerous situation.